Hello, and thank you for joining us on this wonderful edition of Community Gems. Today we have our beautiful friend Nita Brady, who writes children's books specifically for children who experienced their family members' incarceration. And so this is a really poignant show. It's a really beautiful topic that nobody else has been covering that we've ever met. And we would really appreciate if you subscribe to our channel by clicking on the box right here and calling us for any real estate needs. This is Catherine Knightsby's Homes and Catherine Knightsby Real Estate. So I'm going to have Daniel ask the first 3 questions. Thank you again for joining us.
Hi, welcome. I'm here with our friend and author, Nita Brady, and we're here to talk about their line of books. And I had 3 questions lined up for this interview. Right, Nita, to begin, I would like to start and ask, what is your personal reason that led you to this field and line of work?
Okay, well, thank you, Daniel, and thank you, Catherine, for inviting me today. I really appreciate it. Well, it starts with a very personal story, Daniel. Many years ago, I had a son that ended up going to prison for many years. And at the time, I was an educator at a large hospital system, and my husband was a principal at an elementary. And so this can happen in any family. And I was faced with a lot of challenges in having a son in prison. And I didn't know anyone else that had a family member that was incarcerated. So I began to look and to talk, and it's not like people are walking around with a neon sign, I have a family member that's in prison. And so anyway, it's a very long story and we don't have time to go into all of that now, but what that led me into starting a support group called Beyond the Walls. And it was for adult family members that had people that they loved in jail or prison. And so that is what started it. And from there led to, I began to go to juvenile hall and do mentoring for the young people there, the teenagers, the boys and the girls. And I was doing this alongside my career at the hospital. And that lasted for a very long time. I've been doing that for over 20 years. But then I retired. I retired from the hospial, and I had this feeling that I was supposed to be doing something else besides mentoring at juvenile hall and also doing this support group for the adults. So I had 3 different people come to me independently and ask me, well, what about young children? Do you have any kind of support group or classes or anything for little kids that are going through this, that have their mom, their dad, their older brother, sister that are locked up, and they're going through a lot too. And to be honest, I really hadn't even considered them. I briefly did, because I actually have some grandchildren that were going through it with their dad that was in and out of jail. And so I had some idea of what kids were going through, but I didn't really understand. I didn't understand until I began to do some research and find out about that, and that was what started this journey.
Okay. Thank you, Nita, for telling us about your personal reasons for getting into that line of work. I know it's a little bit hard to talk about it with other people and become public with the information. But hearing what you said at the end, with hearing about the children that are impacted by their family members who've been incarcerated, that leads me to my next question, which is, how are children impacted by their family members being incarcerated?
That is a great question, Daniel. Most children are very deeply impacted, and I'll share just from my own personal experience. I did see, as I began to work with these children in the school system and also in the community centers, I began to see and hear from the children themselves. But I had done a lot of homework before I even started putting together this program, and I was really shocked by some of the things that I learned. There was a study at UC Irvine that said that for many children, the incarceration of a parent affected them even worse than divorce or the death of the parent. And that also came out in an article in Education Week which is a weekly magazine for educators, and it said the same thing, that it impacts many children worse than divorce or death. So some of the things that I observed were that many children took on a lot of guilt. It was a huge burden. They felt that it was their fault that their family member was incarcerated, whether that was the mother, the father, or the older sibling. That came out again and again. Many of them, I mean, they're grieving. It's a huge loss. They're very sad. They're having a hard time functioning at school and at home. They get very depressed, very frustrated, sometimes anger. They get angry, especially the older kids, like in middle school. I observed that. And so it is very, very hard for them. And they don't have the best coping skills. You know, these children, they're just little children. And there's a lot of shame involved in it too, a lot of secrecy. Basically, they don't have a voice. And so the support groups that I was doing for them gave them a voice to be able to share things on their heart and what they were thinking, that was a safe place, that they could talk about it. Sometimes they couldn't even talk about it at home. So yeah, the impact is huge. It just affects them very deeply.
Nita, thank you for answering the last question. Just hearing about children being impacted, I remember you also saying, what was it that you said specifically?
Well, what I observed and what I've read about is that a lot of children it's one of two ways. They will either withdraw and really go inside, and we see a very depressed child, or you will see acting out. And often this comes out at school. You'll see a child completely disengaged, or you'll see a child acting out. And often, sometimes the school does know what's going on in their life, but other times they don't. And all they see is a problem child. And that's problematic for the child and the family.
Okay, that leads me to that just perfectly transitions to my next question, which is, how do we help these children go about healing their pain, their trauma, their hurt?
That is a great question, and I'm glad you used the word trauma, because it is a trauma. It's more than grieving a loss, it's trauma. And so actually there are a lot of things that we as a society can do. First of all, we need to be aware, which this is a great thing we're doing. We're making people aware. There are a lot of people that really don't know how children are suffering through this. It's almost like, they're forgotten, and they're the forgotten victims. So first of all is awareness, okay? And then second of all, there are tools that can be used to talk about these issues. It should not be a taboo subject. It should be talked about in families. It should be talked about in schools, in counseling sessions. These children need to be able to have a voice. Now, what I've done, and I know I'm one person, it's just a drop in the bucket, but I do believe that I've made a difference for some people in our county. I started the support groups. Anybody can do this, really. Getting the kid, working with school counselors, identifying who these children are. We meet in 8 sessions. Every session we address a different issue that they're dealing with, and we do it in a fun way, we do it in a safe way. There's lots of activities that engage these children from age 6 all the way up to middle school 14. I also wrote some books. I wrote 5 different books, and all of them, they're right here. All of these books, there's 3 of them for elementary school age, and there's 2 for middle school. And what they do is they address all of these issues of the choices that we make. Now, we're only responsible for the choices we make. We're not responsible for choices other people make, such as our parents or other people in our life that have made choices that are not good. We need to be responsible, and this is what I teach them through the books and through the classes, is that there are consequences for every choice we make. Make a good choice, good consequence. Make a bad choice, there's going to be some bad consequences. But a big part of what the message that I try to get to these kids is that there is hope. In fact, my little tagline is basically, beyond the walls, there is hope.
Hello, and thank you for joining us on this incredibly important show. We're a little bit emotional. Daniel has experienced this, our family has experienced this, and Nita wanted us to remind our viewers that these materials are for classrooms and families to utilize. They can be bought on Amazon for a very fair price, and we will have all the links attached. But our family has been greatly impacted, and actually we're super blessed and believed and on the path to some healing around these same topics. We were touched by family members in prison. Daniel, did you want to say anything?
I just think that what Nita is doing is very powerful and important because I don't think there's enough figures in this community or any community that talks about this subject. Coming from a child who has experienced the pain and suffering of having family members incarcerated, I really resonate and appreciate Nita Brady's books, the tools and resources she provides that can help people heal through this.
And we are experiencing healing based on just meeting Nita and the Bible study, and we really thank God for continuing to come alongside us. And thank you for supporting our show. Don't forget that we need to buy and sell real estate out here so we can make a living and continue to bring you these great community gems. So thank you, and please subscribe and join us on all our shows. See you next time.
It's real estate. Take this journey with me.